Welcome back to Unfinished Business. I am so excited for today's conversation because I think it is something that many of us experience, especially in middle age. It's not uncommon to hear someone in their 40s begin to express that their body feels tight or stiff despite even the best efforts to take good care of themselves. Because for a lot of people, it's not a lack of effort, it's a lack of knowledge and the right approach to holistic health. So today I am joined by Marla Evans, and she is the owner of the Stretching Place here in Amarillo, Texas. Amarillo's only local stretching studio, whose mission is to help you stay loose. Literally. I love her slogan. Marla, I'm so glad that you're here to explain this to us. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let me start with this. So, as I suggested, people are listening right now, and there are probably some middle agers who wake up stiff. They sit all day working desk jobs. They go to bed sore, and so on and so on. And somewhere along the way, they have just accepted this as the new normal. And their back always hurts, their hips are tight, their bodies don't move like they used to. And they think, I'm just getting older and this is just a part of it. What do you want them to know? And if we listen to everything that you are about to share with us, what could change for them?
I want them to know that it doesn't have to be that way. There's a big difference between common and normal. Okay, those are not the same things, even though we tend to use those words interchangeably. It is common for us to get stiff as we collect birthdays. We don't use that A word around here.
I like
Because
it.
I'm staring a new decade in the face. So we don't use that A word. We collect birthdays. And so it's common for us to get stiffer, to slow down, to the aches and the pains. And some of that is biological as normal wear and tear happens to the body. But a lot of it is simply our lifestyle choices are finally catching up to us. You mentioned the chronic sitting, where we spend hours at a time sitting at a desk, very little movement, this kind of thing. And our bodies are designed and intended to move. Okay. We were never intended to be still. We need that movement to literally lubricate the muscles, to lubricate the joints, to eliminate waste from the body. And so when we have these stationary jobs where we're sitting almost immobile all day long, sitting at a computer, staring down at our phones, whatever it is we're doing, the body dries out and stiffens up. And so then you combine that with just the natural stiffness that comes along with, like I said, collecting birthdays. And now you hurt,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be that way. If we're taking care of our bodies and doing what we know we need to do, it doesn't have to be that way.
So if people begin to take your advice, what could change in their lives?
Oh man, they can get down on the floor and play with the grandkids again. They can wake up in the morning and get out of bed without having to think about it first.
Yeah.
I heard a funny joke about people of retirement age and whatnot, don't get down on the floor unless you have a plan to get back up. You got to have a plan to get back up off the floor. Well, if you're taking care of your body and we're keeping it lubricated and we're keeping it moving the way it was designed to move, that's not as much of an issue. You can get down there and play with the grandkids. You can get down on the floor and play with the dogs. You can get down there and clean up underneath the refrigerator if you need to, whatever it is. I saw that.
Some choices are optional, people. Well, I'm so excited to dig into this because I know you're going to share a lot of research and a lot of approaches to help us be able to do just that. But I want to know, I'm curious, Marlo, what led you into this work? And was there a moment that you realized that, people were really missing the boat when it came to longevity and keeping their bodies protected from collecting those birthdays, as you say?
With those excessive birthday candles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was about 4.5 years ago, something like that. I was really having a lot of back issues myself, just exactly like we talked about, waking up in the morning. And I mean, I could barely get up because my low back and my hips hurt so bad. Maybe a little TMI, but this is the way it was. I had to use the bathroom off the kitchen in the morning because there was a counter next to the toilet where I could hold on and get myself down and back up off the toilet. I couldn't use the one in my regular bathroom because I hurt too much to sit down. And so, I mean, there's really extreme low back and hip pain. And so I was going to physical therapy and doing the exercises, and all the stuff. And they were doing laser on my back. Well, the girl that was administering the laser therapy, somehow we got to talking about stretching and its importance to the body and with helping these kinds of issues. And then she mentioned that her parents own a couple of stretch franchises out in the Albuquerque area. And I thought, that is absolutely brilliant. What a brilliant concept to have a place dedicated just to stretching, because we all know we need to do it and none of us do, right? Or if
Yeah.
we do stretch on our own, we're never really sure, am I doing it right? Am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Just a lot of questions surrounding that. So I thought that is an absolutely brilliant idea. So I spent about a year and a half exploring the different franchises. There are two main ones out there. There are two up and comers, and then there's a couple of smaller ones out there as well. And so I took a lot of time exploring that franchise model. Almost signed on the dotted line twice with two different franchises. Both times it fell apart at the last minute. And after the second one, I'm like, okay, God, I can take a hint here. Sometimes I'm a little slow, but I can take a hint here. you know, this business model is pretty simple. It's not a terribly complicated business model. I have a history and training in holistic health, and I certainly have a lot of experience taking care of my own painful and grumpy body. I've got the knowledge to do this. So rather than going with a franchise, here we are. I did it just on my own without the use of a franchise. I tell people we're not a franchise. We're just one crazy woman with a big dream and a second mortgage. And here we are.
Well, I love that, and Amarillo was very lucky that you did have that crazy dream and the gumption to follow through, but I do wanna ask a follow-up to that. So, what did they share with you about this model that intrigued you the most? If you could think back to that day, describe what was the light bulb moment in what she said or what they said, that made you wanna go, "Oh my goodness, this could be for everyone."
I just know how good it felt when my trainer would stretch me. Physical therapy will incorporate stretching a lot of times. Personal trainers might incorporate it. Massage therapists will incorporate a little bit of stretching, but rarely do you find any place that is just about the stretching. It's the chiropractor doing a shoulder stretch maybe to get this to loosen up enough in order to adjust the back, and that's it. Your trainer may be hitting the hamstrings after a crazy workout, but not necessarily doing the upper body. And
Yeah.
same with massage. I joke with people all the time. There's only so much stretching you can do when you're naked under a sheet and still keep it legal. There's just only so much you can do. So that's kind
Yeah.
of limited too. And just the idea of a place dedicated just to stretching where people have accountability. That's a big part of it because we all say we're going to and then we don't, right? So accountability is a big part of it. Having that appointment with a specific person is important. But then just knowing that there's a place people could go where we know what we're doing. We know how to do it. We can take you safely and effectively into a stretch deeper than what you can achieve on your own. I was like, that's just brilliant. Everybody needs that. Everybody.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like that there was a big gap. And to your point, yes. I mean, even my own personal experiences with chiropractic care, that is often the best part. But it is short-lived. They're working to adjust a certain segment of the body, but you're like, oh, can we just hold that for
Can we
a
stay here a little longer?
yeah, yeah. So, okay. So now I just want to know, like, what shifted for you internally when you decided, I'm going it all in. This is an awesome solution for many people. And what did that moment feel like when you decided I'm in for it?
It was terrifying and exhilarating and exciting and OMG and what am I doing? And just all the things, just all of it together. But it really did just all fall into place. It really fell the space that we have. I was originally looking at another location, couldn't come to an agreement on a lease with that space. And then the spot opened up and it's just right off culture where people see us driving by and everything just fell into place. And the people who needed to work here were here. And it's just like everything shows up at the time I need it. It shows up. So God's been good. And it's been a really interesting adventure the last 2 years.
What are people feeling right now that they have started to accept as normal, but they don't have to?
I hear from people all the time, my back doesn't hurt as much. I can get out of bed in the morning and I don't hurt. Had a man just this morning called us up and said, can I get in this morning? I said, have you ever been here before? No. But I've heard about stretching and I've heard about you, and I've got this sciatica I just woke up with this morning, and it's hurting like crazy. He'd been traveling and sleeping in a hotel bed, and body was out of whack. And so we were able to stretch that out, and he left with it feeling a whole lot better. I've seen athletes improve their performance. We had a student athlete come in. He's a baseball player, came in, had a stretch with us, and his pitching speed went from like 87 miles an hour to 90, something like that. So his pitching speed increased. We've
Because
got
range of
golfers.
motion?
Yeah, well,
Is
yeah,
that
greater range of motion and just the body is free to move the way it needs to move, and so he was able to increase his pitching speed. We've got golfers whose game improves because they can rotate more. A lot of times we get stiff in this rotating plane. This isn't something we do a whole lot unless you're reaching behind you to get something out of the back seat of the car, right? We don't do a lot of this rotational stuff, so we do tend to lose mobility there. Well, that impacts your golf game, right? So we've got golfers who can wind up and follow through on their golf swing better. We've got runners whose hamstrings don't hurt anymore, cyclists whose hip flexors don't hurt. Just long haul truck drivers. We've had several of those, or even not even a truck driver, but people who just drive a lot for a living, and you're sitting in this basically fetal position, right? Your hip flexors are shortened, your knees are bent, so your hamstrings are shortened. They've got all kinds of back pain, so we're able to unfold them from that sitting position where they spend 8 to 10 hours a day and relieve their back pain, relieve their leg pain. So it's been cool. It's cool to watch.
so you're mentioning very specifics in day-to-day life. What else do clients describe, like, post stretch? Like, what are they able to do in their daily life that they can really take notice of, that they feel different?
A lot of times we'll hear, "Oh, I slept so good that night. I slept like I haven't slept in forever." So sleep improves, energy levels improve. Yeah, just moving through life and they don't have that nagging pain all the time.
Based on what you've seen, how long are people living with these types of symptoms before doing something about it? How long do you
Most of them
think?
years. Yeah, years. And a lot of times we'll hear people have tried this, that, the other, and nothing's helping. But they come in and they start stretching and they stick with it and stay consistent with it. That's the key, is consistency. It's not just come in once and get a stretch and feel good. That's great. But if you want to continue to see improvement, you have to continue to do the stretching. Just like you don't stop going to the dentist after one cleaning, you got to go back. Same thing
Right.
here. Just life gets so much easier for them, and they're not dealing with that nagging pain. They're not popping pain killers, over the counter painkillers all the time to try and take care of it. They feel better. They can do what they want to go do, get out in the garden, ride their bike, go for a walk.
Yeah. When you're feeling better, you probably are more motivated to do a little more,
Yeah, when
maybe.
you hurt, you tend to sit, which only
Yeah.
makes it worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do so many people, so let's talk about the other side of that equation though. People that are active, you've mentioned runners and cyclists and golfers, and to me, I think the perception is that they're loose. They should be feeling pretty well. So why, if they're active, why do they still feel tight or can be in pain? What's happening?
Yeah, well, using the muscles makes them stronger, right? I compare it to an oak tree. All right. Oak wood is a very hard wood, but you plant an oak here in the Texas panhandle with the winds like we tend to have, and that it can't bend with the wind, right? And so it tends to snap and break, as opposed to some other trees that are more pliable and they can move with that wind and they're less prone to breaking. And so the same thing, as we're strengthening and using our muscles, that's important. We need to do it, but we also need to make sure that we're working on that mobility and fluidity of the body as well, in order to prevent injuries, prevent the soreness, this kind of things. I see it especially in weightlifters. I was doing a demo stretch at an event one time, had a police officer come up and get a stretch. Dude was huge. We're talking Arnold Schwarzenegger size of huge. He's into the heavy, heavy lifting, right? Guy's strong, stiff, stiff, stiff as a board. And he hurt because he couldn't move the way he needed to move. And so stretched him out. He got to feeling better. That needs to be a regular routine for him to really work out that stiffness.
Love that analogy, Marla. That makes it so you're suggesting that stretching with consistency allows the body almost to be able, like a palm tree. It can adjust to the outside elements, the factors outside.
Right. So if you do stumble, you trip, you catch yourself, maybe you don't fall, but we've all done that. We've tripped over something and your body experiences a jerk. right? And so even though we didn't fall, we didn't get immediately injured, that sudden jerking of our body to keep us upright and keep us from falling will trigger sore muscles a lot of times because those muscles aren't used to reacting that fast, or they're a little bit stiff and they can't react that fast easily, right? And so it irritates them. And so now we're sore. Now we got everything's, out of whack and grouchy. And whereas if the muscles had been in a looser, more fluid position, or condition, I should say, uh, that stumble wouldn't have been any big deal, you know?
You had mentioned earlier that lubrication. Can you go into kind of the science behind that? Is that part of what stretching allows, is for more literal fluid to pass through and help heal those things? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's particularly the stretch technique that we use. We use fascia stretch therapy is the technique we use. It's been in use for over 30 years. Ann and Chris Frederick developed it. She developed it while working for the Arizona Cardinals. It's used by NFL players, Olympic athletes, professional athletes worldwide. It's a well-established, well-respected stretching technique. And what I like about it is it doesn't just stretch one muscle. It stretches entire functional lines. And it's not just addressing the muscle, it's addressing the fascia and the connective tissue in the body. So the fascia, if you've ever cooked a chicken breast and you got that little bit of white film that you peeled off of the chicken breast,
Yes.
that's fascia. So it surrounds your muscles and allows them to glide over each other. It surrounds the nerves and again allows them to move within the tissue. It's what holds your organs in place. It does all kinds of things for you. It's also involved with some hormonal signaling, some detoxification things, lots of stuff. We're finding more and more what the fascia does for our bodies. It used to just be considered useless packing material, so when they're doing the dissections and studying the body and whatnot, they would just take the fascia out and toss it so that they could get to the good stuff, the organs and the muscles and the bones, right? Well, we're discovering that the fascia actually does all kinds of things for us. And the way the fascia works, it needs to stay hydrated, and it stays hydrated through movement. So when we keep the fascia moving and fluid rather than compressed, think of a dry sponge. You got that dry cellulose sponge on your kitchen counter. You can bend it, but it's like really slow to respond, right?
Yeah.
Till you stick it under the water and it gets full of water. Now that's the thing, you can just move that sponge however you need to. Our fascia works in much the same way. Stretching its movement helps to hydrate that fascia and get it moving the way it's supposed to. And then, of course, it's also addressing the muscles. It's helping to eliminate some waste and toxins in the body. It can help with a little bit of lymphatic movement too, moving the lymph and the toxins out of the body, all those kinds of things.
You made a good point that I really want to ask you about, because when I was researching our conversation, I came across something really interesting that I wanted to ask about. There was, and it may be alluding to this part of the conversation that you just mentioned, but there was a study that basically said that stretching doesn't prevent injury or soreness, and it sparked this huge debate. And so I'm curious why, and that was part of the research and I'll let you go into this, the fascia research. Why did that create so much controversy? Why did that study create so much controversy?
I don't know. Maybe people just like to argue. I don't know. But I think if it's the study that you're talking about, if it's the one I'm thinking of, I think they were looking at stretching individual muscles in isolation. Whereas fascia stretch therapy, we do a whole line of connective tissue muscles all along functional lines. We're not just doing one stretch. But I think that's what it came down to was looking at just stretching one particular muscle doesn't really do much to prevent injury. So, yeah.
Would part of that controversy be that lining? And repeat that. What was the lining called?
The fascial lines. The
Fascial.
fascia runs in lines through the body. So the one that I find the most fascinating, it
Right.
starts at the tip of your big toe. It goes under the foot. You've heard of plantar fasciitis, right? So it starts at the tip of your toe. It goes along the bottom of the foot, up the back of the calf, up the back of your thigh, through the pelvis, and then up the spine over the shoulder, up the neck, over the head, and it attaches to your eyebrow. So literally, when you move your eyebrows, you're flossing the fascia that connects all the way down to your toes. So that is one line of fascia. And I just found that amazing that your toe is connected to your eyebrow.
And so what you're saying, going back to the sponge analogy, so if that starts to become more brittle over time because we're sitting, we're, compartmentalized, then that it affects the entire flow of the body. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. People are amazed. They say I hurt here. Well, maybe we turn something loose in the opposite hip. So we have a saying that the source of pain is often far removed from the site of the pain. So you feel it here, but it's coming from here, or something like that. Your hip hurts, but it's your foot that's out of alignment. That kind of thing.
It
Yeah.
happened to me this morning, and I have been told, I do a fair amount of running, and I know it's my hip flexor that tends to cause the most problem, but I feel it in my knee. So I
Mhm.
always thought that it was, knee pain or just inflammation around the knee, but I can attest to that. I wanna talk, just play devil's advocate for a second. So somebody out there listening has said, "I stretch, but it just doesn't, it doesn't really help me. It doesn't alleviate the pain." Is that really a fact, or is it possible that they might be doing it incorrectly?
All of the above. All of the above. It could be that they aren't properly isolating the area that they want to stretch. A common thing is if you're wanting to do for example, a hamstring stretch. If you round your back, you lose the hamstring stretch. So, for example, if I come out here, yeah. So if you're doing a hamstring, can you see me? Because I'm black on black floor. Can you see that? Okay. So if we're going to do like a hamstring stretch, this is a pretty common one, right? But what people will do is they'll round their back, round your back. You pretty much lose the hamstring stretch. You've got to keep that back flat in order to the pelvis in the right position in order to get to the hamstring. So they might not be positioning their body right. It could be one tiny little change completely changes the stretch, or it could be they aren't going deep enough, long enough. It could be a lot of different things that they aren't necessarily doing right. But one of the big things with self stretching, and I want to preface this by saying stretching on your own is important. We need to do some sort of flexing and flexibility and mobility work daily to keep the body working right. But you can't stretch yourself the way we can stretch you. And what I mean by that is, regardless of what stretching technique you're using for yourself, some part of your body has to stay active in order to hold the stretch, right? So that hamstring stretch I was just talking about, I'm having to use all kinds of muscles just to hold myself upright, right? Never mind leaning over and maintaining balance and all that other stuff. A lot of my body was active while I was stretching that hamstring. And that's the case for most stretches. Some part of you has to stay on to hold the position. When we're stretching clients, they can completely let go, just completely relax, which gives us access to greater range of motion. That combined with the stretch technique as well, we can take them into a much better stretch than they can get to on their own. And a part of stretching that we really don't ever think about, and one that's again fascinating to me, is the role of the nervous system in stretching. Muscles are only tight because the nerves tell them to be tight. And what tells the nerves to be tight? The brain, the nervous system, right? The master controller of the nervous system. So think about it. When we're stressed out or fearful, what do? We tighten up, right?
And
Whereas
rush
when we're relaxed, pardon?
to
Yeah,
get it up
and rushed. Yeah,
that hyperactive state. This hurts. I want to stop. Yeah,
exactly.
that makes so
Yeah,
much
so that the nervous system causes us to tighten up. And so one of the things we do with the stretching is get people to relax. We hear it all the time. People come in and they're like, I almost didn't come. I was so afraid this was going to hurt. Maybe they had physical therapy or something and they took them into a strong stretch. There's a time and a place for that. The stretching place is not. Ours is very gentle, but we hear it all the time. People are afraid it's going to hurt. And it doesn't. We work with the nervous system, with the breath to get the body to relax and let go. I actually can release a hamstring without ever stretching it. just with some of the techniques we do. Yeah. By getting the body to let go and we do a little bit of gentle traction, I can get people, some people as much as a 50% increase in their range of motion in their hamstring, just because one, I got the body to release and relax. And two, I created space in the hip socket and I'm able to take that leg into a deeper range of motion than they could have done on their own. It's completely fascinating to watch when a client comes in and they're so uptight and they're so tense. I literally can barely move their body just because they're kind of like this. And then towards the end of the session, they're beginning, or middle of the session, they're finally beginning to relax into it. And now I can just move them and I can take them into whatever stretch I need them to go. It's pretty cool to watch the nervous system in action.
Yeah. Can you go a little bit deeper, Marla? Can you talk, walk us through the process? What does it look like when somebody comes in to the stretching place for the first time?
Yeah, well, they'll be greeted at the front desk. We have them fill out, the required paperwork. You got to make the lawyers and the insurance company happy, right? Always. And then we bring them back. We put them on. Here's one of our tables right here. They just lay there and completely relax. We will have a little conversation with them before we get started stretching about a little bit of their medical history, their goals, these kinds of things, any injuries that we need to be aware of. Do you have a joint replacement? Do you have any implanted medical devices? These kinds of things, just to make sure that it is safe to stretch. And then we lay them over here on the table. And usually I'll start with what we call double leg traction. So I'll take both of their feet by the ankles and just gently traction those legs and slowly take the legs side to side. It's a wonderful decompression for the low back, really feels good. And just have them just breathe and just calm down and relax. Yeah, and then we just take it through. Where do we find the tight spots? Let's hold that stretch a little longer. You're good on this one. You don't really need this stretch. We can skip this one. Let's go over here and see how that one's looking.
Yeah. Tell us more a little bit about the assessment when someone first comes in. How do you so quickly put together a plan in your head of what techniques will help?
Right. Well, some of it's just history. If they come in and I ask them, what is your occupation? And I had a gentleman come in. He owns a couple of businesses and he's on the road constantly. Last week when he was here, I think he was going from Amarillo to Albuquerque. He had 2 hours of a meeting there. Then he was driving up to Longmont, Colorado, I think it was. Then he was going down to Dallas. From Dallas, I think he was going to San Antonio, Albuquerque, and then back up to Amarillo in like 2 days or 3 days or something completely crazy. And so lots of time sitting in one position, holding the steering wheel, all that kind of thing. So right there, I know he's sitting a lot. I know he's going to have tight hip flexors. He's going to have tight hamstrings. He's going to have tight shoulders because most of us drive like this, right? So just knowing what they do for a living a lot of times tells me, okay, those are the areas I'm going to look for as we do a stretch. Same thing if they've had any injuries in the past or surgeries. You got a knee replacement. Okay, there's a good chance your knee doesn't bend as far as it originally did. So we're going to have to watch out for that. And we may need to work on that quad a little bit more because it's going to be tight and grumpy because the knee doesn't stretch as much as it or bend as much as it used to. So a lot of it comes from the interview at the beginning, the assessment at the beginning. But also as we're going through the stretches that we do, there's a lot of points in the stretch where its assessment is built into the technique. Like we'll do one stretch and we're using this more as an assessment. How well is that hip coming over? Am I able to rotate the pelvis the way I want to for this next stretch? So I can tell, is that a little bit of tightness there? Okay, let's spend a little bit more time on this little warm up move before I try to go into the full stretch. So some of it's asking them questions before we start, and some of it is paying attention as we're going along and seeing how the body responds to the stretch.
So this is more of an interactive session. You're getting feedback as you progress.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Although we do have quite a few clients who will fall asleep during their stretch, and that's just fine. We can, we can it happens a lot.
So what are a couple of things that you notice in someone's body that we might overlook?
A lot of people are surprised at how tight their glutes are. I
Really?
hear that a lot. We take them into a crossbody where they've got their leg. I can't explain. I have to do it, and I don't have anybody here. But we take their leg across their body and then bring the knee up towards the chest, and it's a really good glute stretch. And a lot of people are surprised at how tight that is. A lot of people are surprised at how tight I mean, we all know our shoulders are tight, but until I take you into that stretch and I have you tilt your head to the side, they're like, wow, I didn't know that was so tight.
Tell me about a client who came in thinking, disbelief and thinking that this wouldn't work, that nothing would work, that they're beyond repair, and this is just it is what it is.
I think one of my favorites was right after we opened 2 years ago. This woman sticks in my mind a lot. Precious, precious woman. She was, probably in her 60s. I believe she and her husband were both retired. She has MS and had trouble walking. She's kind of all curled over, used a cane. Came to us for her first stretch because MS does cause muscle spasmosity, and they tighten up. And so we did a very, very gentle stretch with her, and sent her on her way. Was As soon as she got up, she felt more relaxed, and wasn't feeling as stiff and tight. But the cool thing was the next day, I guess she and her husband have a regular doctor's appointment that he goes to every week, and she goes with him. And when they walked in, the nurse, her husband's nurse, looked at her and says, "Your posture's a whole lot better today." And
Wow.
she's like, "Yeah, I got stretched yesterday." So that was really, really cool to see that level. And somebody who didn't know what she did, was completely unaware of the stretching she had, or whatever, had noticed the change in her posture after her first stretch. It was very, very cool.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
What had maybe she tried before coming to you?
Well, I don't remember. She had some stuff come up and hasn't been able to continue the stretches, unfortunately. I think about her a lot. Hopefully, she sees this and will come back because I miss her. But they had some catastrophes in their life, and she wasn't able to continue. And I don't remember what all she had tried in the past.
I'm sure you have a myriad of other stories, but explain what progress looks like over time. You mentioned earlier consistency is part of what will make this an ongoing improvement to your health. What does progress like? What are some of the common scenarios that progress looks like?
It's really kind of funny. A lot of times people may not recognize the progress because it can be subtle at first. And, they may notice some immediate things like they wake up and they're not as stiff anymore. But sometimes it's not until something they do something, they move wrong, they overdo it working in the yard or whatever, and the pain comes back and they're like, "Wow, I forgot about this hurting me before." It had just kind of quietly gone to the wayside and wasn't bothering them anymore, and they completely forgot that that ever hurt until they did something to bring it back. So sometimes we have to kind of keep track of, what are you dealing with, so that they can remember, because they're like, "Well, nothing's hurting." Well, yeah, that's the point. That's the whole point, right? Nothing's hurting. We don't want to wait until something hurts and now deal with the problem. Let's keep it at bay. I love it when clients come in and our regulars, the first thing we ask them, "Is there anything in particular bugging you today?" And they're like, "No, I'm really feeling good." I'm like, "Yeah, let's keep that going. We don't want to go back to the way we were before."
Yeah. When the client realizes that it's working, what do they share with you? I mean, do you see more motivation to continue, or do we go back to old patterns and old ways of being?
I think there's a little bit of both. There are some that recognize it and they're like, there is no way I am missing my appointment. I am there regularly because I know what this is doing for me. And there are the ones that make me really sad because they're like, "Well, I'm not hurting. I don't need this anymore." I was like, "This is what got you to the point where you're not hurting. And now you're going to go backwards." But, I'm not in charge of their choices. So I just have to kind of grit my teeth and hope for the best and hope they come back.
When the person realizes they've had this light bulb moment, they realize it's working and they want to continue. Describe who they are. Like from a mindset perspective, who is this person?
This is typically a person who's been dealing with pain for quite a while. In fact, we recently had one of these types of clients come in. She'd been dealing with all kinds of issues, rheumatoid arthritis, and a couple of misdiagnoses on other things. And I mean, it's kind of all kinds of complicated stuff going on in her past. But she's just stiffened and she hurts and she's tight. And she came in, experienced one stretch, and said, "That was magic. I haven't felt this good in forever. I am absolutely not letting this go." So she sat down and scheduled out the next month of stretches. She says, "I've got a bunch of doctor's appointments that I need to coordinate around, and I'm getting you on the calendar first because I don't want to miss this. This is really making a huge difference in my life and in my mobility and that sort of thing." And just, yeah, totally committed to it. It was really cool.
How quickly, from the time someone comes in more regularly, and you can describe what that process looks like to us as well, but how quickly do you see people have relief? Like relief that they can really recognize?
Right. Everybody's different. And so everybody's healing journey is different. Some people see an immediate difference with the first stretch. Some of them say, I really didn't feel any different. I still hurt. And, so some people take a little longer to untangle all the mess, to rehydrate the tissue, all those things that we've been talking about. Sometimes it takes a little longer to get there. Other people get there very, very quickly. It really is a completely individual journey, and you just don't know how it's going to go until you try.
Walk us through what the plan looks like.
Yeah, so we have them come in for their initial stretch, and we walk them through, like I said before, with the assessment, the intake form, take them through the stretch, kind of identify where are their opportunities, their areas of opportunity. And then we come up with a plan for how often do we want them to come in. And so we'll do this one intense optimization phase for sometimes 6 or 8 weeks, depending on the client, where they're coming in pretty regularly, at least once a week for an hour, maybe even twice a week for somebody who really has a lot of opportunity for improvement. So we put them into this short phase of just high coming in regularly. And then at the end of that, we'll take a look. Okay, how are you feeling? Are you holding your stretches longer? Are you finding that you have relief for at least 4 or 5 days, maybe even a week? Okay, once you get there, now we can start backing down on the frequency. And so then maybe they come in, maybe they've been coming in once a week. Now they come every other week. So we'll do that for about 3 months, reassess. How are you doing now? Is everything good? Do we want to stay at this frequency? Do we need to come a little bit more often? Maybe they've been doing a lot of traveling and they're stiff and sore from sleeping in odd beds, or maybe they've been working on projects around the house and they're a little bit more sore. Maybe they want to go back to weekly sessions for a little bit. And then we just keep reassessing and just keep going and giving them what they need to keep living the life they want to live.
You also have some goodies in the studio that I think people would be interested, even from a relaxation standpoint. Can you tell us what those are?
Are you talking about the vibration therapy tools?
Yeah.
Those are magic. We call them the buzzers. Yeah, they're magic. This is called the rapid release. This is the Pro 3 rapid release. So people have seen those massage guns, right? Well, we won't name brands, but everybody's seen the massage guns. They hammer into the tissue. Okay. And some people really like that, can really help them feel good. But sometimes that hammering action can trigger the nervous system. The body thinks, oh, I got hit. I got struck with something. And so the body will brace to protect you from it. So it can actually cause things to tense up. This doesn't do this. This is vibrating side to side. So when we're taking it on the body, it's going side to side, not down into the tissue. It doesn't trigger that reaction. This particular tool is vibrating at 10,000 vibrations per minute. So it's very, very quickly. It sends those vibrations deep into the tissue. So when we combine this with our stretch technique, it really gets it to turn loose. I've seen these things do some pretty cool things for some seriously tight glutes, tight low backs when we combine this with the stretch technique. Yeah, it's
What types, I mean, what are you noticing in the difference?
just people let go. So one of the moves we start with, our very first stretches, is we're sitting next to the client. I have their ankle on my shoulder and I'm just taking their leg into a circumduction, into a circle like this. That helps lubricate the hip socket. It also helps warm up the tissue before we go into a stretch. Some people are just so uptight, they can't give me their leg. I can't take the leg in
Wow.
a circle. So I'll take one of these out and just kind of buzz the outer part of their hip, just sending these vibrations deep into their body. Maybe I go down the side of the leg along the IT band, and just for, 15, 20 seconds. And then I can take them into that movement. They're able to let go. It calms the nervous system. And so I'm able to take them into that movement a little bit better. Or maybe we're taking them into a good glute stretch and they're like, OMG, that is so tight. Well, again, I'll take them into the stretch. So I'll take them into the stretch and back out. So I'm kind of oscillating in and out of the stretch while vibrating the target muscle with the tool. And that gets it to turn loose really quickly.
Part of the goal is, I mean, just like the story you're describing, where someone can't fully let go enough to make this full circular motion, and you needing to be in the parasympathetic nervous system. What other tools or items within the studio help you to prepare for the session?
You're asking about our sound lounge, aren't you? Ooh, should I take you back there?
Yes, can we?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Okay. Alrighty. So this is our sound lounge. Kind of hard to see it with the laptop. I have a nice little sitting area over there. And over here, this is the magic right there. It's a vibroacoustic therapy bed. So there are four transducers in this bed. A transducer is kind of like a speaker, but rather than sending the sound waves through the air, it goes directly into your body. So there are four transducers in the bed itself. And then
Wait, Marla, I have to ask a follow-up. What do you mean the sound goes into your body? What do
you
you
are
mean?
laying on the bed and the vibrations from the speaker go straight into your body as you're laying here. So you're laying
Wow.
on the bed, you've got this lovely weighted blanket on your chest. We've all heard about the benefits of weighted blankets for anxiety, right? And how it calms the nervous system. So you've got these soothing vibrations, you've got this weighted blanket on you, calming you down. It's like a great big hug. And then up at the top of the headboard here, there are two music speakers. So you're listening to beautiful music, the vibrations are going, and your whole body just goes,
Oh,
it just lets go. People describe it as the best nap they've ever had. They described it as floating. They say, yeah, I just felt like I was floating in space. It's really cool. So people will use this. Sometimes they'll come in before their stretch because they know they're coming from a really stressful job and they're all like this. So they'll come do a sound lounge session before their stretch just to get the body to calm down so it could stretch better, right? Some people like to use it after their stretch just to solidify that relaxed feeling they got from their stretch. Sometimes clients have just had a bad day and they just need to calm down. I had one precious client just as we were finishing up a stretch, she got a message on her watch that her uncle had passed away right at the end of her stretch, and my heart just broke for her. And I said, why don't you come lay down on the bed for a minute and just take you a minute. And so I put her on the sound bed. We have a particular frequency program for it that is specifically designed for grief. I put
really?
that particular frequency and music on for her, and I didn't want her going out in the car and driving in that emotional state. I wanted her to have some time to calm down so that she would be safe going out and driving. But I also, my heart just broke for her. You know, I've been there, done that. I've gotten that kind of news before, and I knew she just needed a moment. So put her in here, put that frequency on that's specifically designed to help us release grief, and just gave her, 25 minutes or whatever it was to just recoup,
Yeah. Real talk, Marla, it sounds like this is a way, I mean, now needed more than ever. I mean, people, the demands of life in general and the pace of life is so different than it was years ago. What are clients, in your opinion, like what are clients sharing after this experience in particular with the added benefits of the stretching?
Mostly it's just they're talking about how relaxed they are and just, wow, that felt so good. I had a woman come in, well, end of last week, I think it was Thursday, right before we were getting ready to close. That precious woman was exhausted. I could just see it on her face. She was absolutely exhausted. Couldn't get her in for a stretch because we were about to close. But I said, have you got 10 minutes? And I brought her back here. I put her on the bed for about 10 or 12 minutes and just let her rest for a little bit. And when she came out, boy, she had perked back up. I could see the real her instead of the poor exhausted her. She had just perked up and was feeling so much better. And we've got her stretch scheduled for tomorrow. She'll come in and get the stretch, but it was really neat to be able to see how the bed was able to just help her in that terribly exhausted state that when she came in to help her perk up and feel a little bit better for the evening.
Yeah, kinda like breathing techniques, it doesn't seem to take very long to get the nervous system to adjust. It's just that we're not actively paying attention to these types of therapies as often as we need to. So I'm curious on that note, what happens if someone keeps ignoring all of the signals that their body is saying? Pain. I've heard something a long time ago that pain demands to be felt. So whether that's tight hips, tight shoulders, like you said with the neck, we're all looking at down on our phones. What happens, in the long term if someone keeps ignoring these signals?
We've all heard about the effects of stress on our body. I've heard it described as metabolic chaos. And that really is what it is. When we're dealing with with long-term chronic stress, it's going to trigger blood sugar issues, it's going to trigger blood pressure issues, it makes changes to the brain, it makes changes to the muscles and the body, hormonal changes. I mean, it really does. That long-term chronic stress just impacts every system of the body.
Marla, you've shared so much with us, and thank you for your knowledge and your expertise and how we can, stay active longer, do the things that we love, spend time with the people that we love in healthy ways. I want to address this because, as you mentioned at the beginning, you are the only locally owned professional stretch therapy studio here. Why does that matter to you?
I want to help the people of Amarillo and the surrounding areas live their best life and not be stuck on the couch in pain, hurting, missing out. I mean, that's just heartbreaking. I've dealt with a lot of chronic pain in my life, and I've been that person who barely makes it through their day at work, drags themselves home, climbs into the recliner, and just doesn't move again because everything hurts. I'm exhausted, don't feel good. And that's not a way, that's not living. And I want to see people get out there and live their lives and do what they want to do and be free to move the way they want to move and not have to worry about, if I do this, am I going to regret it, all that stuff. I want to see people living their best lives, and stretching and taking care of your body is one way that we can do that.
Yeah. Well said. Marla, tell us what is possible if they take action today, if they start taking action today. What's possible for someone?
The sooner you start, the sooner you feel it. So just start, just get going and let the process play out so you can start feeling better. I have a wonderful life phrase, something that really means a lot to me. And that is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And it's very true. If you keep doing what you've been doing, it's not been working, but yet we keep doing it, you got to try something else to get to where you want to go.
Definition of insanity. Well, Marla, I want to be mindful of your time. This has been so great. We have a tradition on this show of asking a couple of last questions, but I want to ask you the magic wand question. If I could hand you a magic wand and make one problem for, Amarillo's active, we'll call them active agers, go away, what would that be?
I hear so much from that crowd about tight low backs and tight hips, and they can't play pickleball, they can't play their golf game, they can't travel. So if we could just wave that magic wand and make that go away so that they can enjoy these years. You worked hard to get to this retirement age. You've earned it. Let's not spend it on the couch hurting. Let's get out there and do what we want to do. So let's wave that magic wand, take care of the hips and low back, and get you out there doing what you dreamed of doing.
I love that. I love that advice. Okay, and final question. This is kind of a hypothetical scenario. We ask all of our businesses on the show. Let's pretend for a moment that the stretching place becomes the next big franchise. And you've taken this as far out, not only serving Amarillo, but everyone with lower back and hip issues and helping them to live a higher quality of life. You've done all of that, but you can't leave any record of the wins behind. We don't get to hear the clients' stories. We don't get to have you with your personal repertoire of these experiences with your clients. But what you do get to leave behind for all of us is 3 pieces of advice that you would share with anyone who is wanting to create that dream life scenario for as long as they are lucky enough to collect birthdays. What would your 3 pieces of advice be for that person?
The sooner you start, the sooner you get there. Trust the process. And something I think we've forgotten, you can do hard things. You can do hard things. Maybe doing something new might be hard for you, but you can do hard things. Taking care of your body and changing the way you eat, changing the way you move. It may be a little scary, it may be foreign, it may be hard at first, but you can do hard things. You can do that. Yeah. Trust the process. You can do hard things, and the sooner you start, the sooner you get there.
Very well said. Any other parting words?
No, let's just loosen up, y'all. Let's just loosen up. And I mean that on so many levels, not just your muscles. There's a lot of things in today's society that could stand to loosen up, but
Man, that's the truth. Marla, I want to acknowledge you not only for, the wisdom and the knowledge and the education that you shared with all of us, but really just your heart and your attitude. It shines through in what you're trying to do. Thank you for trying to make Amarillo a better place to live and age and collect way more birthdays. So I thank you for being a guest on the show. And we will definitely be linking the stretching place information in the show notes so that anyone can find the website. Marla, where else can we find you? Where else do you hang out where we can look you up for more information?
You can find us on Facebook and to a lesser degree on Instagram. I'm not there quite as much as I am on Facebook, but yeah, Facebook, Instagram, the web. You can also find us out in the community quite a bit. We frequently do block parties, fun runs, golf tournaments, these kinds of things. You'll often find us out there in the community doing stretches, letting people know what this is and how it works and how it feels. So I look for us out and about too.
Fantastic. And a final word, we have a couple of special holidays coming up. Would you like to share anything that the stretching place is doing that might incentivize us to come check you out?
Yeah, we've got a special for Mother's Day, and we'll repeat it. Yeah, heads up, we'll repeat it for Father's Day too. 15% off a 50-minute stretch. So they can call the studio, purchase a gift card. I will take 15% off and then give the gift card to mom or whoever. I don't know who you're going to give it to, but we are running that 15% off a 50-minute stretch for Mother's Day. We'll repeat it again for Father's Day as well.
Fantastic. Marla, thank you again for being here. And until next time, tune in to Unfinished Business. See ya.